The morning light of Madrid spilled gently through the heavy crimson velvet curtains of the royal palace, casting delicate golden rays across the polished marble floor. In the east wing, where the royal chambers stood, an unnatural hush had taken hold. The usual bustle of servants and attendants had been replaced by slow, cautious footsteps and worried glances exchanged in silence. Guards stood straighter than usual, their expressions grave. Inside the Queen's bedchamber, Queen Isabel de Bourbon y Médicis lay exhausted upon silk sheets, her pale face slick with beads of sweat, strands of black hair clinging to her damp forehead. At her side, King Felipe I stood motionless, his expression dark as he gazed toward the small bundle in the nursemaid's arms. "Your Majesty, it's a boy," announced the royal physician, Don Francisco de Quevedo. He tried to infuse his voice with enthusiasm, but a trace of unease betrayed him. The king stepped forward slowly. This was his fifth child, but the first who might survive past infancy. The others had all succumbed to illness before reaching 3 years of age, leaving the Spanish court anxious about the succession. "Let me see him," Felipe ordered, extending his arms. The nurse hesitated, a pause that did not go unnoticed by the king, before she carefully placed the infant in his hands. The moment the child rested in his father's arms, Felipe frowned, bringing his face close. He inhaled lightly, then murmured, "What is that smell?" The physician approached cautiously. "Your Majesty, we've bathed the prince in the finest oils and ointments." "It's not that," Felipe interrupted, his tone sharp. "It's something else." From the corner of the room, the Duchess of Medina Sidonia, Doña Luisa de Guzman, stepped forward. A woman in her 60s, she had attended countless noble births and was known for her bluntness. "It's the smell of death, Your Majesty," she said, her voice low but steady. "I've smelled it before, on battlefields, in houses visited by the plague." The room fell into a suffocating silence. The Queen sobbed quietly, too weak to speak. Felipe, his face drained of color, returned the baby to the nursemaid with stiff mechanical movements. "No one, absolutely no one, outside this room is to hear of this," he commanded coldly. "The Prince, Carlos Baltazar, will be presented to the court in 3 days as tradition demands. In the meantime, I want the best physicians in the realm to examine him. And you, Francisco, do not leave his side for even a moment." The royal physician bowed, his eyes betraying deep concern. There was something unnatural about this newborn, but he dared not voice it aloud. 3 weeks later, in the king's private study, Don Francisco stood before a small gathering. The king himself, his personal advisor, the Count Duke of Olivares, and, unexpectedly, a foreign visitor, Dr. Heinrich von Leyden, personal physician to the Austrian emperor and a distant relative of the Spanish royal family. "Your Majesty, we have examined the prince thoroughly," Francisco began, avoiding the king's direct gaze. "Physically, he seems typical for a newborn, though unusually pale. He feeds well, cries with strength, yet the odor remains. At times it even grows stronger." "And what does science say about this?" asked the Count Duke, a shrewd, pragmatic man who had been the king's right hand for decades. "There is no explanation, my lord," Francisco replied. "I have consulted every medical treatise, from Galen to the latest studies from the University of Salamanca. There is no record of such a case." Felipe moved toward the window, looking out over the palace gardens where nobles strolled, blissfully unaware of the crisis within. "And you, Dr. von Leyden, have you seen anything like this?" The Austrian physician, thin and sharp-eyed, His white beard, neatly trimmed, cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, I have treated European nobility for 40 years, including many of your kin. What afflicts Prince Carlos? I have seen before, though never so pronounced, in other branches of the Habsburg family." A heavy silence followed. All present understood the implication. Centuries of intermarriage among close relatives, common practice among Europe's royals, especially the Habsburgs, had preserved bloodlines, but brought hidden costs. "Continue," Felipe said, his voice tinged with both fear and resignation. "I call it genetic necrosis, Your Majesty," von Leyden explained. "It is as if part of the body is already dead from birth. The tissues decay more quickly than in normal people. In Austria, I have seen similar signs: deformed jaws, mental instability, inability to produce healthy heirs. Here, it manifests as this odor." "You mean my son is doomed?" the king asked quietly. "Not exactly, sire," von Leyden said with measured calm. "The prince could live for many years, perhaps into adulthood, but his life will not be like others. The odor will likely remain, and his health may always be fragile. There is no cure, not with the medicine we know. But there are treatments, special baths, diets, exercises that may strengthen him." The king turned from the window, his face set with determination. "Then we will do everything possible, and no one beyond this room must know the truth. Olivares, prepare an explanation for the court. Say that the prince uses a ceremonial perfume for symbolic reasons. And you, Dr. von Leyden, I will double your pay to remain in Madrid as my son's personal physician." Von Leyden bowed. "It would be my honor, sire, but I must consult the emperor." "I will write to him personally," Felipe said. "This is beyond politics. It is the survival of our dynasty." Meanwhile, 5 kilometers from the palace, in the working-class neighborhood of Lavapiés, a 17-year-old girl hurried through narrow alleys. Ana Maria Hernandez, daughter of a respected apothecary of humble origin, clutched a carefully wrapped parcel to her chest. Her father had been given a strange commission: to prepare a salve from herbs brought from the New World, some so rare she had never heard of them. The royal messenger had been clear: it must be delivered before nightfall, and no one must know of its existence. The payment had been generous, enough to keep her family comfortable for months. Turning a corner, Ana Maria nearly collided with a group of young noblemen laughing loudly. Among them was Diego de Velázquez, apprentice to the court painter, who greeted her with a discreet nod. "Ana Maria, what brings you here?" he asked, stepping away from his companions. "Business for my father," she replied, holding the parcel protectively. "It must be important for him to send you alone," Diego said, eyeing the bundle. "Some say the young prince is unwell, that he has an odor no perfume can mask." A shiver ran through her. She knew nothing of the salve's purpose, but now the pieces began to align. "You shouldn't believe rumors," she said, forcing a casual tone. "I must go, it's getting late." "Be careful," Diego warned. "The palace's secrets can be dangerous to those who know them." In a small square near the palace, a plainly dressed man of good quality approached her. "Do you have the apothecary's delivery?" he asked quietly. She handed him the package. He inspected it briefly, then pressed a small pouch of coins into her hand. "Your father has served the crown well. We may require his skills again." As the man walked away, Ana Maria could not help but wonder. What illness could the prince have that required such strange remedies, and why such secrecy? What she did not yet know was that soon she would be drawn far deeper into the mystery than she could ever have imagined. Years passed in the Spanish court, and against all odds, Prince Carlos Baltazar reached the age of 6. For the time, this was considered a triumph. Though slight of build, he was not sickly, his pale skin and sharp Habsburg chin marking his heritage unmistakably. His dark, penetrating eyes seemed to study the world with a maturity beyond his years. Yet, the odor persisted. Dr. von Leyden had tried countless treatments over those years. Ointments prepared by the late apothecary Hernandez, exotic remedies from the farthest colonies of the empire, rare minerals, and carefully crafted diets. Some lessened the smell temporarily, but none eliminated it. The court had learned to adapt. Officially, the prince wore a ceremonial perfume symbolizing his divine connection, an explanation crafted by the Count Duke of Olivares and never openly questioned. In private, courtiers referred to him as the perfumed prince, politely keeping scented handkerchiefs near their faces in his presence. Carlos himself was not blind to these subtleties. From an early age, he noticed the glances, the distance even his tutors maintained. One day, at the age of 5, he confronted Dr. von Leyden during a routine examination. "Why do I smell different, doctor?" he asked, his small voice steady. The Austrian had been taken aback, then requested the king's permission to tell the boy a softened truth, that he had a unique condition, rare among princes, which made his body produce a distinctive scent. It was neither good nor bad, just a part of who he was. The prince had accepted this with a quiet dignity that astonished the adults around him. On his 6th birthday, the king arranged something unprecedented, a small public appearance for his son. It would not be a grand procession, but a private audience with selected nobles and their children. It was to be a first step toward the prince's integration into court life. "Are you nervous, Your Highness?" asked Maria de Austria, his chief attendant, as she adjusted the lace collar of his deep blue velvet suit. "No, Maria. I have practiced my bows, and I know the names of all the dukes and their children," Carlos replied calmly. Maria smiled, proud of his composure. "Do you think they will like me?" the boy asked suddenly, his eyes betraying a moment of vulnerability. "It is not a question of liking you," she said gently. "You are the Prince of Spain, the future king of the greatest empire on earth. They must respect you." Carlos nodded, though he seemed to understand the evasion. "Dr. von Leyden says my condition hasn't worsened this year. That's good, isn't it?" "Very good, Highness. Now remember the correct distance when greeting people, just as we practiced." The throne room was filled with fresh flowers, their scent mingling with the aroma of perfumed candles. The windows were opened to let air circulate. Every detail had been planned to mask the prince's odor. Announced by heralds, Carlos entered with measured steps. Among the guests stood Ana Maria Hernandez, now 23, her father long gone, but her place at court secured as Dr. von Leyden's assistant. She had been instrumental in preparing the prince's special treatments, and over the years had grown fond of the boy's intelligence and quiet strength. As the nobles presented their children to the prince, all went smoothly, until the son of the Duke of Medina Celi, an arrogant 7-year-old, stepped forward. "Your Highness," the boy said with a bow, "my father says you smell like the tombs at El Escorial." Gasps rippled through the room. The Duke turned pale, gripping his son's shoulder. "Insolent! Apologize at once!" But Carlos stood still, his face calm. "The tombs at El Escorial hold the kings of Spain, my ancestors," he replied clearly. "If I smell like them, it is because I carry their blood and their destiny." Ana Maria felt a swell of pride. Even the king, observing from his throne, allowed a faint smile. The ceremony continued without incident, but whispers of the exchange spread quickly, accompanied by newfound respect for the boy. That evening, as Ana Maria prepared the prince's bath with Persian salts, Carlos watched her thoughtfully. "Señorita Hernandez, do you also think I smell like the tombs?" he asked suddenly. She paused, meeting his gaze. "Every person has their own scent, Highness. Yours is simply different." "But unpleasant?" he pressed. "Different," she corrected gently. "I'm so used to it, I barely notice." He seemed to consider this. "Dr. von Leyden says my condition is hereditary. That means it comes from my ancestors, yes?" "Yes, Highness." "Then my children will smell this way too?" The question, so innocent yet heavy with dynastic consequence, caught her off guard. "Medicine advances every day. By the time you have children, perhaps we will have found a cure." Carlos nodded, apparently satisfied. He stepped into the warm, scented water as she washed his hair. "That boy from Medina Celi was cruel," the prince remarked, "but honest. I prefer honesty to whispered lies." "You are wise for your age, Highness," she replied. "It's not wisdom," he said. "It's necessity. A king cannot afford to live in ignorance, not even a king who smells of death." The words, spoken in the high voice of a child, yet carrying the weight of a man's understanding, stayed with her long after she left his chambers. That night, Ana Maria resolved to intensify her research, searching ancient texts, consulting healers from across the empire, determined to find a cure, not for the sake of the dynasty, but for the boy himself. Far away in Vienna, another Habsburg struggled with his own inherited affliction. Archduke Leopold Wilhelm, brother to Emperor Ferdinand I and second cousin to King Felipe I, suffered from increasingly frequent bouts of madness. In a lucid moment, he dictated a letter to his cousin in Madrid. "Dear cousin, I have heard of the young Prince Carlos Baltazar's condition. Though our ailments differ, we share the same blood. In my moments of clarity, I have studied what plagues us. I have found ancient writings that speak of a ritual that might ease our suffering. I send these pages with my most trusted messenger. They are not sanctioned by the Church, but I have found some relief in them. Blood calls to blood. Life may renew what death has touched." The messenger arrived in Madrid just as the prince's condition took a turn for the worse. His fever spiked without cause, and the odor grew stronger than ever. Von Leyden had exhausted every known treatment, and for the first time in 6 years, feared for the boy's life. In desperation, King Felipe summoned Ana Maria to his private chambers, a breach of courtly norms for someone of her station. "Señorita Hernandez," he said, his voice weary from sleepless nights, "Dr. von Leyden speaks highly of your skill. My cousin has sent these documents. They describe unconventional methods." Ana Maria's hands trembled as she accepted the pages. "You wish me to study them, Majesty?" "I wish you to save my son," Felipe replied, emotion breaking through his regal composure. "As king, I cannot openly approve such practices. As a father, I will do whatever it takes." She nodded. "I will study them at once, Majesty. If I find anything of value, I will act under my own responsibility." That night, in her small laboratory within the palace, Ana Maria read by candlelight. The Archduke's texts described rituals of blood renewal from ancient Eastern Europe, adapted with thin Christian trappings to avoid outright heresy. The idea was that fresh blood could purify the corrupted, if exchanged under specific conditions. Her apothecary's mind recognized some medical plausibility amid the superstition. She decided to strip away the pagan elements and keep what might work scientifically. Fresh blood from a healthy young donor, preferably unrelated to the Habsburg line, mixed with certain herbs before being applied to the prince. The risks were enormous. If she failed, she could be accused of sorcery or worse. But if she succeeded, she might save the boy's life. She began preparations immediately. The chosen night was moonless, with most courtiers away at a religious celebration. In a small chamber adjoining the prince's rooms, Anna Maria arranged her tools: glass vials of herbal extracts, small silver knives, metal least likely to interfere with the blood's properties, and glazed ceramic bowls. Dr. von Leyden stood nearby, grim but resolute. "Are you certain of this?" he asked quietly. "I'm certain of nothing," she replied, adjusting the flame of an oil lamp. "But I have removed the superstition. What remains is primitive medicine, but medicine nonetheless. And the donor? He will be here soon, healthy, young, and unconnected to the royal family." A knock sounded at the door. Anna Maria opened it to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered young man with a wide-brimmed hat shadowing his face. "Diego," she said, stepping aside. Diego de Velázquez, now the court's official painter and her trusted friend from Lavapiés, removed his hat and bowed to von Leyden. When Anna Maria explained the prince's plight, "I could not refuse. If my blood can help the heir to Spain, it is a small price to pay for the honor the crown has given me." Von Leyden studied him clinically. "An excellent donor," he murmured. Anna Maria explained the process in calm, precise terms. She would draw a small amount of blood from Diego's arm, mix it with the herbal extracts, and apply it to a small cut on the prince's arm, allowing the two to mingle. "Will it hurt?" asked a small voice from the connecting doorway. They turned to see Prince Carlos, pale in his nightclothes but standing with determined curiosity. "Highness, you should be resting," von Leyden urged. "I want to know what you will do to me," the boy replied firmly. Anna Maria knelt to his level. "We are trying a new treatment, Highness. It is experimental, but we believe it may help you." "You will use blood?" he asked, glancing at the table. "Yes, some of Master Velázquez's blood, mixed with medicinal herbs." Carlos regarded the painter. "You are the one who painted my father on horseback." Diego bowed. "The same, Highness." "My nurse says your hands are blessed by God. Perhaps your blood is too," the boy said seriously. A chill ran down Anna Maria's spine. In his own way, the prince had grasped the essence of what they were attempting. Dr. von Leyden straightened, his voice calm but firm. "If His Highness is awake, perhaps it is best we proceed now. The fever has eased for the moment. An ideal time." They settled Carlos in a cushioned chair, supporting his small frame with pillows. Diego rolled up his sleeve and seated himself beside the boy, while Anna Maria cleansed the instruments over the steady flame of a candle, just as her father had taught her. "You'll feel a small prick, Master Velázquez," she warned, cleaning his arm with a mixture of alcohol and herbs. Diego nodded, eyes steady. "I've endured worse mixing pigments for your father's portraits, Highness," he said to the boy with a smile. Carlos smirked faintly, reassured. With a swift, practiced motion, Anna Maria made a small incision, collecting the dark, rich blood into a ceramic bowl. She added measured drops of various herbal infusions, mentally reciting the proportions from the Archduke's notes. Von Leyden, meanwhile, prepared the prince's arm, explaining each step in a gentle voice to keep him calm. Does it hurt? Carlos asked Diego, watching the crimson flow. Not much, like a scratch, Diego replied. When the mixture was ready, Ana Maria warmed it slightly over the lamp. The liquid darkened to a deeper red and released a faint herbal aroma that, for the first time, seemed to mask the prince's persistent scent. "We are ready, Highness," she said softly. Without hesitation, Carlos extended his arm. Ana Maria made a small cut, just enough to draw a few drops of his own blood, then applied the warmed mixture, letting the two mingle. She wrapped the arm in a clean bandage while von Leyden watched his pulse and breathing with sharp attention. Diego, now with his own arm bandaged, studied the scene intently, as though committing every detail to memory. "Now we wait," Ana Maria said. The hours that followed were tense. Carlos fell into a deep sleep almost immediately, his breathing steady. Von Leyden remained at his side, checking him constantly, while Ana Maria brewed strong tea to keep them awake. "This is remarkable," Diego murmured from his seat by the window, sketching idly in his notebook. "In painting, I mix pigments to create something new. You mix blood, hoping for the same." Von Leyden allowed a faint smile. "A poetic comparison, though the body is far more complex than any canvas. What we're doing," Ana Maria added quietly, "is as much faith as it is medicine." Carlos stirred, murmuring unintelligible words. All three froze, watching for signs of distress. But when he opened his eyes, there was a clarity they had not seen in weeks. "I'm hungry," he announced, sitting up with more energy than before. Von Leyden checked his forehead. "The fever is gone," he said in disbelief. Ana Maria leaned closer, inhaling. "The smell, it's much fainter." They exchanged a look, part hope, part caution. Over the following weeks, the improvement held. The odor remained, but reduced to a level that could be masked with ordinary perfume. His strength returned, his appetite grew, and for the first time in years, there was a sense of cautious optimism in the royal household. The king summoned Ana Maria to a private audience. "You have achieved what the finest physicians in Europe deemed impossible," Felipe told her, his gaze intense. "Spain is in your debt." "I merely applied knowledge discovered by others, Majesty," she replied humbly. "Dr. von Leyden and Master Velázquez deserve credit as well." "They will be rewarded," the king said. "And you will need to remain at court indefinitely. The treatment must be repeated regularly, I presume." "Yes, Majesty. The effects seem to last about a month before fading. And then I grant you a minor noble title to secure your position and protect you from gossip. You shall be the Countess of Lavapiés." The honor took her breath away. She accepted with a bow, aware that this was not merely gratitude, it was a binding of her fate to the princes. From that day forward, the treatment became routine. Diego remained the principal donor, while von Leyden recorded every detail, adjusting the formula as needed. By the time Carlos turned 10, the once whispered rumors about his scent had nearly vanished. It was then that Archduke Leopold Wilhelm arrived on a diplomatic visit. The man whose writings had inspired the treatment requested a private audience with the king, the prince, von Leyden, and Ana Maria. "The blood has worked," Leopold declared after studying the boy. "The color in his cheeks, the absence of odor, it is clear. My congratulations, cousin." Felipe thanked him, though wariness lingered in his eyes. Leopold turned to Ana Maria. "So, you are the apothecary who adapted my texts. Impressive, especially for a woman. But I suspect you removed crucial parts of the ritual." "I kept what was compatible with modern medicine, Your Grace," she replied evenly. The ceremonial elements were unnecessary. Leopold's smile didn't reach his eyes. Rituals are never unnecessary, Countess. They are how we speak to forces older than we are. Von Leyden cut in, praising the prince's health, but the Archduke's gaze lingered on her. And the donor, is it still the same? Yes, the painter Velázquez, von Leyden answered. An error, Leopold said sharply. The blood will adapt, lose its potency. You should rotate donors. Carlos, silent until then, spoke up. I like Master Velázquez's blood. It makes me feel strong. Leopold's eyes gleamed. Of course it does. The blood of an artist is full of life. But eventually, you will need something stronger. That night, Leopold visited Anna Maria's workshop unannounced. His tone was almost conspiratorial. You have done well, he said, but you have not cured him. The necrosis remains, dormant. Only one thing can banish it forever: innocent blood. The blood of a child, freely given by parents in exchange for wealth and titles. Anna Maria recoiled. Never, and His Majesty would never allow it. Leopold arched a brow. Are you certain? Kings have done far worse for their heirs. Before she could reply, Diego entered with guards, announcing that the king required Leopold's presence. The Archduke left Madrid soon after, his departure wrapped in diplomatic courtesy, though everyone present understood it was exile in all but name. 2 years later, when Carlos turned 12, von Leyden expressed concern over Diego's health. Years of regular donations had taken their toll. We must find another donor, the physician told Anna Maria. I will be the alternate, she decided without hesitation. The king approved, dismissing any worries over court gossip. With her blood supplementing Diego's, Carlos's health soared to new heights. As adolescence approached, he grew into a boy of striking intelligence, with a curiosity for art and science alike. Under Velázquez's guidance, he sketched with skill. Under Anna Maria's, he learned botany and natural medicine. In private, he sometimes referred to them as his real family. One afternoon, he entered her workshop without knocking, a habit he'd acquired. Have you ever wondered if we are truly who we think we are? He asked, sitting across from her. What do you mean, Highness? She asked cautiously. You and Diego have given me your blood for years. Does that mean I'm partly you? She considered her answer carefully. The blood carries life, but it doesn't change who you are inside. Your thoughts, your choices, that is what makes you Carlos Baltazar of Habsburg. But before I smelled of death, now I smell different. Isn't that a change in who I am? Perhaps in your body, she admitted, but not in your soul. Carlos studied her intently. Then I am still myself, just not alone. I carry a part of you both. That means when I am king, even if the court bows and no one speaks honestly, I will still have you. The simplicity and certainty in his voice moved her deeply. You will always have us, she promised. What had begun as a desperate medical experiment had grown into something far more, a bond that would shape not only the prince's future, but the fate of Spain itself. And soon, that bond would be tested in ways none of them could yet imagine.